One of my favorite things of One Piece just happened in this chapter. When Luffy steps up and proves why he is captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. What he did when he took command, when he realized what happened to Pedro, when he took command, and he was telling everybody to, not waste this moment that Pedro gave everybody, and to try to escape. And then he calls out his entire crew's name. And as he does that, he's like, "Don't worry, guys, I'll be back. I promise you, I will be back." And so, as they launch off, he goes into the mirror world, and he decides to just trap himself in there and stand off against Katakuri. It's a very noble moment, but it also makes you realize how mature Luffy can be, and also why he is captain, like I said, of his crew. Because moments like these are the reason why I really enjoy One Piece. When you see Luffy just standing up, he's staring down Katakuri, he realizes nobody's there to back him up and save him at all, nobody is coming, it just shows that Luffy is definitely determined to win this fight, or at the very least stall enough time for his crew can be able to get away. And it's just an emotional moment. It's really epic, and it was a great way to kind of conclude this chapter, and I'm really glad Oda's not on break next week because of the cliffhanger of this chapter. Anyways, though, this chapter opens up with Pedro, and getting a little bit of characterization on him, and seeing kind of what he's been living for so long. As we know, he's had quite the interesting life. In his later years, we know that he failed, and he lost a friend that died. And he lost over 50 years of his life thanks to Big Mom. And because of that, it put him over at 70 years plus. He was probably very close to death. He probably maybe had about a couple of years left, and he was probably going to kill over from old age. So he didn't have long to live. And that's kind of how the chapter opens up. You have it to where we get to see the continuation of when Big Mom took his life. And you have it to where Pedro asks the question, like, your name, or whatever, of the pirate crew that you had. Nox. Why? Like, why did you call it that? It actually means night, doesn't it? And Pedro's like, yeah, it does mean night, but I don't think it necessarily means, like, anything depressing like you think. It's kind of like a saying that the darkness, it happens, but then dawn will happen eventually. Like, the light will always come in, even though the darkness is there right now. And so it's kind of like saying you will go through a lot of dark times. You'll go through so much that you'll think that there's never any hope, any light. But then when you get to that point, then dawn will arise, and you'll realize that a new era has begun, or a new life has been born, or a new chapter for the entirety of the world has begun. And that's kind of what the name represented. And I feel like it's very, very fitting for the pirate crew name for Pedro and what he did in this chapter and last chapter, but also how he's setting up for Luffy to show that he really is a captain. There's a big importance here. One of the big things about this chapter that Oda really wanted us to nail in and understand is that when Pedro sacrificed himself, he is probably dead. And let me explain why. Many have been theorizing that he's probably alive thanks to what happened in the past. And when you remember what happened a long time ago when someone had like an explosive, it was obvious that, it was kind of crazy how somehow he managed to survive. But he did, regardless. And many have been believing that Pedro could be very similar to that. But that does not necessarily seem to be the case, because when you look at Pedro in this chapter, he's extremely damaged. The man, what it appears to me, I could be wrong, so do not quote me on this, but from what I saw from the chapter, it could just be because of the way his, candy armor was falling off or whatever, and it was completely destroyed, but it looked like he lost his arm or something, like his arm just got blown off or something when you saw the panel. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, do not quote me on that, but that's what it looked like to me. Now, it could be just because of candy armor, but that's what I saw. So because of the impact and the explosive radius and all of that, knocking over Big Mom as well on her side, because we know how durable Big Mom is. It's been built up throughout this entire arc that Big Mom is completely durable and she does not take damage. And for her to fall over like that just shows how powerful the blast must have been. So Pedro's likelihood of surviving that explosion is basically 0%. So, Pedro sacrificed himself, and I think in a way, if he really is dead, it's actually perfect for his character, for what he represents in this chapter, and I feel like that's kind of what Oda was trying to do. He's letting us know that Pedro's death, it's sad, but what he's doing is he's paving a path for those that come after him. For instance, Carrot. Carrot is kind of the big, important character of this chapter, which many might have noticed, or they could have just completely overlooked it and just been focusing on Luffy, but Carrot was very important in this chapter. When Pedro had that flashback and Roger gave him words of encouragement and all that, he's like, just wait. Someday you will eventually have the time to shine. And this is what Roger stated to Pedro when he was a kid. And over all these years, all of this darkness that he's went through, he finally saw a dawn of a new era. He's seeing Luffy, he's seeing the Straw Hat crew, he's seeing Carrot, he's seeing the next generation, he's seeing everyone. And so when he laid down his life, he actually was setting and paving the road similar to what Roger did. Roger, as we know, he died. But in his death, he smiled and he opened up a whole new era, a new age for the entire world. And that is what set forth everything we have seen in One Piece. And that's because of what Roger did when he had his time to shine and he finally... it was over, it was done, and his life ended. That's basically what Pedro did. Maybe not as extreme as Roger, but what Pedro did paved a path for Luffy, but also for Carrot, because he said the exact same lines in the flashback to Carrot, saying that eventually she will have the time to shine. Now, there's a lot of emphasis here about that, and I find it really cool what Oda did in this chapter. Normally in a regular shonen, when you have this type of flashback when a character dies or whatever, and they're, learning from their mistakes, and then they tell, what they've learned to the next generation, usually the next generation will automatically prove themselves. They'll prove that they're amazing, and that they can get stuff done, and they will not be defeated. That's usually what happens in typical shonen. Actually, just literature in general, that's usually what happens. And I was very surprised with all of that, like a big chunk of the chapter focusing on Pedro. You'd think Carrot would have stood up and probably have knocked back Katakuri and then opened up a path for the Straw Hats to get out. But even with all of this characterization and backstory to Carrot and also Pedro, Carrot was not strong enough. It was not her time to shine, which makes those words just so much more true now. Remember what Roger said, remember what Pedro said. Just wait. Eventually, you will have the time to shine. And when Katakuri just shoved her to the side and pushed her to the ground like she was nothing, like she was basically fodder, it shows the power scale difference, that Katakuri is way beyond Carrot. She is nowhere near his level. She cannot even hope to face him right now. And if she would have been able to face him, it would have felt like just bad writing in general. It just been bad writing, and the power scaling would have been very inconsistent because of what we've seen from Katakuri thus far, and also Yonkos and stuff. So if Carrot would have been able to do something, it would have been a little bit upsetting. And so I'm very pleased with the writing of this chapter, of how Carrot, even though it was an emotional moment, it was a typical shonen moment, Oda decided to do the unshonen moment and push Carrot to the side and basically go with what the words were saying. Just wait. Eventually, you will have your time to shine, which implies that maybe Carrot will join the Straw Hat crew. I mean, let's be real here. The Straw Hat crew, we know we have Jinbei. Jinbei is a really important asset to, the crew, but it's still not enough. I believe that there needs to be more frontline fighters and stuff, and I think someone like Carrot, from what we have seen thus far from her and what she has done in this arc, she could definitely fill that spot. And we need a frontline female character as well. I mean, we have Zoro, we have Sanji, we have Jinbei. I mean, we have Nami and Robin, but they are not really frontline fighters. They're more of like backline fighters, and they fight from a distance or whatever. I would like to see someone up close and personal like how Zoro and Sanji is. I'd like to see a female character like this. And so that would make me very happy if Carrot was added to the crew. Now, I know this is a big meme when it comes to, the One Piece community. Everybody talks about, oh, this character is going to join the crew, this character is going to join the crew. But because of this chapter, it feels like that's what Oda is trying to prep us up for. Because we got to remember that Roger, he took a mink into his, crew. He had a mink. Now, I know many might consider Chopper as a mink because of, what he is, but I don't necessarily consider him that at all. So Carrot joining in and actually joining the crew, because it would be a very symbolic message, because it would reference what Roger did, but also it would show that, she is stepping into the spotlight, and that's what Pedro is paving the path for her for, and she's going to join the Straw Hat crew. That would be a really cool moment if she did do that, because of that. And Pedro, his death could be kind of like that tragic backstory, which all of the other Straw Hats have as well, because we know they all need to have a very sad backstory, and since this is what just happened, this would, be perfect for a character to join, if that is a requirement of, joining the Straw Hat crew. Anyways, though, besides that, let's get into the Katakuri stuff. So Katakuri, once again, a great character. I've really enjoyed Katakuri as a character because of just how his personality is. It's mainly his personality and how he compliments his crew, or he helps his crew members out and saves the fodder that usually is just very irrelevant. He saves his crew members, he tries to be a nice person, follow in, and just get things done. He's like one of the actual main people of this arc that have been proving that they are not incompetent and that they can get stuff done. And that's what he has been doing. And he even went as far as to praise Luffy in this chapter, which was really astounding to me, because I really love it when villains, they can actually set aside some of their pride, and they don't always have to be 100% evil. They can actually compliment someone if they're really good or strong, and that's what Katakuri did to Luffy. He was very impressed with Luffy, of how, he pushed him into the mirror and all that, and, now Katakuri can't attack his crew, but also how Luffy was able to just shatter the mirror, and now it's just them 1v1ing now. I really like the way that was done, because it shows that Katakuri does have respect for the people he fights. You can see he does respect Luffy, or at the very least he was complimenting him, and it felt like honest compliments from him when he was talking to Luffy. So just quality stuff right there when it comes to Katakuri's character. Now, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Luffy stands up and fights against him. I mean, I don't know how he's going to win, but who knows? We'll see how it's done. I mean, Luffy was very serious. He put on his captain face, so we just got to see where it's going to go. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.